Hello everyone, my name is Adelanda and this is Solarpunking, where we discuss solarpunk ideology, things we can do in our communities to make them better, and ways to build the world that we want to live in. Today is a shorter one because I haven't really felt well this week at all, but I've come to you with some useful resources that I've been looking into. I've mentioned mutual aid before, but I am actually not an expert on the logistics of how these larger networks work. My experience with mutual aid was when I was working for the Department of the Interior, living in smaller communities where we had no choice but to rely on each other to survive, especially during storms when access to external resources were limited. We shared water, made meals, carpooled, relied on each other to be first responders, and we were our own little community in a vast wilderness for the majority of the time. I'll be honest with you, I think we're all going to have to build these small villages to survive in this country over the next few years. Because here's the thing, we're currently living under an authoritarian regime. We have to come to terms with that so we can focus on how to support and protect each other. I genuinely believe that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And I'm not saying that to scare you or to rile you up. I'm saying it because I think it's important that we start building now. Thankfully, there are organizations that already know what they're doing. They've built strong networks and they need our support to keep growing. This is one of the few ways we can put power back into the hands of the people. We do that by meeting urgent needs directly, without waiting for the government to act. Mutual aid brings us together and creates a kind of connection that's much harder to break than when we're stuck in an individualistic mindset. Now, this list is only covering resources available nationally or regionally, simply because it's difficult to provide local resources that will be useful to everyone. But I definitely recommend that you look into local groups as well, because they are often the quickest and most efficient at getting things done. First, I want to highlight the Big Door Brigade. The Big Door Brigade is one of the most accessible guides out there if you're trying to understand or get involved with mutual aid. They break it down in a way that's honest, practical, and grounded in solidarity. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by where to start or unsure what mutual aid actually looks like in practice, this is a solid place to begin. They remind us that taking care of each other is political and it's how we survive together. I'm going to play a short clip from their What is Mutual Aid video, but I highly recommend you check out the whole thing.
Mutual aid projects are a form of political participation in which people take responsibility for caring for one another and changing political conditions, not just through symbolic acts or putting pressure on their representatives in government, but by actually building new social relations that are more survivable. During recent flooding and storms, we saw mutual aid in action as people helped each other survive. Mutual aid isn't just for those big weather disasters, it is also for the daily, routine, life-threatening disasters of capitalism and white supremacy.
Next, we have Food Not Bombs, one of the longest-running mutual aid groups out there. They've been out in the streets for decades, sharing free, plant-based meals with anyone who's hungry, no questions asked. What makes them stand out is that they treat food as a right, not a privilege, and they operate entirely outside the systems that profit off of poverty and suffering. Food Not Bombs shows up where the state doesn't, feeding people and building community at the same time. This is mutual aid in action, direct, radical, and rooted in care. And lastly, the Legal Defense Fund, which I've talked about before. They've been out here doing the work since 1940. They were started by Thurgood Marshall and have always been about using the law to fight for rights and survival. They've taken on modern fights around voter suppression, police violence, and economic justice, and they don't just show up in the courtroom. They're in policy spaces, community spaces, and in the streets when it matters. This isn't performative for them. It's long-term, strategic, and rooted in real commitment to racial justice. Before I go, I also want to recommend that you check out the video, What is Mutual Aid by Andrewism. I am probably going to recommend Andrewism's work a lot on this podcast because they've been going hard in the solarpunk space for quite a while. So if you want a solid explainer of the many ways you can get involved with or build local mutual aid groups, that video is a good one. I'm going to continue this later, but for now, thanks for listening into episode 8 of Solarpunking. You can catch new episodes every Sunday this summer, where I will talk about solarpunk ideology, things we can do in our communities to make them better, and ways to build a world that we want to live in. This one was short because I'm a little under the weather, but if you've enjoyed listening in so far, consider sharing this podcast with your friends and family members that you think would also like to join the movement. Also, consider leaving me a comment to let me know what you liked and didn't like, or if you have mutual aid resources you want me to look into, because I'm definitely going to continue this. Until next week, stay hydrated and motivated. Peace.